After a really fun battle, Snake heads to the mountains, but is confronted by the strongest members of the Cobra, the Great Ladder. Okay, that was a joke. But after an extremely long climb up some stairs, and after traversing the mountains, Snake meets Eva inside some ruins at the top of the mountains. There, she informs Snake that she has prepared an airplane at a lake for their escape. She also tells Snake that Sokolov is being held in the highly secured west wing of Groznyj Grad, and could only sneak in by disguising himself as Major Ivan Rydenovich Rykov, who is heavily hinted at being Volgin's gay lover. She also asks Snake about his relationship with the boss. He says, "She's like my mother and my master." Eva asks him if he loves her. He says no. Then she asks him if he hates her, and he again says no.
"Half of me belongs to the boss. For 10 years, we lived and died together. You couldn't possibly understand."
To which Eva asks, "And you think you can kill her now?" Good point. Eva then goes to Groznyj Grad on her motorcycle, which can be seen in the distance over some mountains, in order to not arouse suspicion from the others. Snake, using his binoculars, sees into the fortress from the mountains. There, he saw Volgin viciously beating an oil drum, which looked weird until he realized that Granin is inside of it, and Volgin was torturing him for being suspected of being a spy. Ocelot once again confronts Volgin about his methods of killing his own countrymen, to which Volgin essentially tells him to get over it. The boss rides in with her horse, Tatiana beside her, and informs that the fear and the end are dead. This makes Volgin's suspicion of a spy even worse, since he believes Snake couldn't have made it this far on his own. Before everyone walks away, Ocelot smells towards Tatiana's direction, or sniffs towards Tatiana's direction, and begins to circle her while contemplating. He then points at her with the fierce crossbow and says,
"Nice boots. Make sure you polish them up properly."
And walks away. After witnessing these events, Snake makes his way to the underground tunnel and is confronted by another member of the Cobras, codename the Fury. And he's a seemingly crazy man who wears an astronaut suit with a jetpack and carries a flamethrower. His ending cutscene kind of implies that he can control fire, but as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't really show that in the fights. After a, dare I say, heated battle, Snake makes his way into Groznyj Grad, knocking out Rykov, steals his uniform, and infiltrates the West Wing to rescue Sokolov. There, he sees Sokolov giving Tatiana a film. After she leaves, Snake goes in to rescue Sokolov. Sokolov tells Snake that Phase 2 is complete, and Volgin is planning on mass-producing the Shagohod to distribute them across the Eastern Bloc, which would turn the Cold War into a nuclear war. I believe this is actually when Sokolov explains what Phase 2 is, so I guess I gave you guys the details before the story did, but whatever, doesn't really matter. Snake asks how to destroy the Shagohod, and Sokolov tells him that if he blows up the fuel tanks in the hangar, it should be enough to blow it up. After revealing that Tatiana is not his lover, and is indeed Volgin's lover, Sokolov tells Snake to keep his family and America safe, since he has decided not to leave the base. He believes that no matter what he does, he's pretty much screwed. If he stayed in Russia, Khrushchev would probably send him to the gulags, which I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what that is, but I'm guessing it's some kind of prison for war prisoners or something, who knows. And in America, he would just be used for making nuclear weapons. At this point, Volgin walks in and sees through Snake's disguise and asks him who he really is. Threatening him by shooting both Sokolov's knees, Snake CQCs Volgin into the ground, and as he takes his proud moment of total win, the boss appears behind him and owns his shit. Again. Volgin then decides to have some fun with Snake as payback for hurting Rykov. After being beaten to a bloody pulp, Snake passes out. Snake wakes up in a torture chamber with his hands tied to the ceiling, unable to see because of a bag covered over his head. He could, however, hear Volgin, quote-unquote, interrogating Sokolov, but his interrogation was too thorough, and Sokolov appeared to have died. Volgin then tortures Snake by electrocuting him to try to find out what the CIA wants, asking if they're after the philosopher's legacy, and also because he's a complete sadist and loves hurting people. The boss and Tatiana then walk in and witness Snake's torture, disregarding the boss telling him that he won't break because she trained him to resist torture. He continues to torture Snake and ask questions. And in typical villain fashion, he tells Snake that he'll never get his hands on the legacy because it's hidden in the secret underground vault of Groznyj Grad. Just in case the spy he suspected to be amongst them was in that room, he just wanted to say that because villain, that's why. During the torture, a transmitter falls out of Snake, and Volgin starts questioning who is responsible for it. The boss takes the blame for it, saying that it was so the Cobras could ambush him. Not able to believe her, he tells her to cut Snake's eyes out in order to prove her innocence. The boss takes her knife and puts it up to Snake's eye, and after some hesitation from her, something that's unlike her, Tatiana stops her and tells her that he has suffered enough. This causes Ocelot to get suspicious. He begins sniffing Tatiana, and when he recognizes the smell, he accuses her of being the spy. However, in order to test her, he does the 3-gun Russian roulette thing again. I'm not sure what that's supposed to prove. That story convenience, I guess. As the loaded gun was falling onto Ocelot's hand, Snake swings his body in and kicks Ocelot, causing him to fling his arm back and shoot his gun towards Snake's face, which burns Snake's eye. As everyone walked away, the boss gives Snake one of Ocelot's revolver and tells him to run. Tatiana then approaches him and reveals that she is none other than Eva, which was a surprise to nobody. But I think it was supposed to be based on how Snake reacted. Anyways, she tells him that she set up an escape route in the sewers and that she has his equipment. Snake is dragged to a prison cell. During his time there, he talks to paramedic, and she tells him that the damage done to his eye is irreversible, and that he would never be able to see from it again. Snake then escapes the cell through various ways, depending on how the player goes about it. He makes his way to the sewers, where he gets a call from Eva, who tells him that Volgin found out he escaped, and they closed his escape route, but that there's another way out. Being chased by the Ocelot unit, Snake makes his way to the new exit, which just happened to be a 100-foot fall in a river with strong currents. Thank you, Eva. Ocelot and his men catch Snake next to this fall and gleefully says that he's been waiting for this being his revenge on Snake. He puts out one single bullet which he keeps on a necklace, the same bullet that jammed on him when he first met Snake. And he puts it in his revolver, because showing off has never failed for him. He points at Snake and pulls the trigger once, but this was not the chamber the revolver was in. Realizing that he had to make a decision now or die, Snake closes his eyes and falls to the river, and the current takes him away. He wakes up in a small river in the middle of a burning forest. Here he encounters the last of the Cobras, save the boss. Codename The Sorrow. His abilities are to summon the dead to fight for him, shoot psychic waves at Snake, levitate, have no health or stamina in his health or stamina bar, and being see-through. Gee, it almost sounds like he's a ghost. This isn't much of a fight as much as it is Snake going through the ghost of every enemy he has killed. And yes, you really will see every soldier you have killed up to this point. So if you like sneaking, this won't take long, you'll only see the bosses. If you like big guns and explosions, you might as well stick the joystick up and get some pizza. After going through all the spirits, Snake touches what seems to be the Sorrow's skeleton and seemingly dies. But then he wakes up. Apparently he was having a near-death experience. He calls his support team, who tells him that he's at the same hills he was in when the boss threw him over the rope bridge. Good times. Sigint also informs Snake that the Sorrow was already dead, and that the boss was the one who killed him. Well, that makes sense. Snake then meets up with Eva in a cave behind some waterfalls, and she gives him an eye patch for his eye. A butterfly flies by Snake, and he tries to catch it, but misses due to his hand-eye coordination going to shit, thanks to only seeing through one eye. After eating some snakes, Eva tells Snake that he can re-enter Groznyj Grad through the cave they're in. You know, Groznyj Grad, the fortress whose name supposedly means impenetrable fortress. I'm just not seeing the impenetrable part here. Who made all these... whatever. Anyways, Eva also gives Snake some C3 to blow up the fuel in the Sabotage hangar, and then rides off. Snake makes his way to Groznyj Grad and into the Sabotage hangar, where he places the C3. When he places the last one, he reshaped it into a butterfly, threw it in the air, caught it, and said,
Gotcha this time.
Ha. On his way back, Volgin and Ocelot are already waiting for him with Eva lying on the ground. Snake, heroically, took aim with his gun and is caught off guard by the boss and owned again. Though at least he put up more of a fight this time. Volgin explained that Eva was found lurking in the underground vault of the fortress, and that's when they discovered that she was a spy. Well, Volgin, that's what you get for revealing where everything is. Shit. Anyways, he reveals that when they searched her, she had already stolen the film which contained all of the data on the Philosopher's Legacy. When Snake asks what the Philosopher's Legacy is, Volgin, being a respectable villain, told him all about it. The Philosopher's Legacy was a huge amount of money pulled up by the most powerful men of the US, Russia, and China during the World War II. The men became known as the Philosophers. They used that money to fund the secret weapons research crucial to winning World War II. After World War II, Volgin's father laundered all of that money into banks in Australia, Hong Kong, and Switzerland. After his father's death, Volgin learned about the legacy and obtained a microfilm that contained records of all those transactions. Essentially, the film is the Philosopher's Legacy. Volgin went on to explain that he used a network of spies set up by the Philosophers to contact the boss and convince her to defect by using the whole "the world was split into two after the World War II and we must make it whole again" card. Volgin then hands the film to the boss and tells her to keep it safe. The boss walks away with Eva and whispers in her ear,
"Leave everything to me."
Before leaving, the boss tells Volgin that the C3 were stolen and that Snake probably plans on blowing up the hangar. Ocelot tries to fight Snake at this point, but Volgin tells him that he will stand there and watch as he fights him instead. Angry at this, Ocelot supports Snake through the fight. Halfway through, however, Volgin notices that he done fucked up. by underestimating Snake. So he tells Ocelot to shoot him. Ocelot refuses, telling him, "I made a promise to the boss." Volgin tries to electrocute Ocelot, but he deflects the electricity by shooting at it somehow. Ocelot then tells him,
Fight like a man, Volgin.
the first time he disrespectingly uses his name instead of his rank to address him. At this point, an alarm starts to go off because the C3 were detected. Volgin sends Ocelot to deal with them, and the fight continues. After defeating Volgin but not killing him, Snake escapes and finds Eva outside with her motorcycle as the hangar blows up. She tells him that the boss let her go and reminds him that she has a plane ready to take off at the lake. Snake, however, knows that he still has to kill the boss. Looking upset, Eva says that the boss is already waiting at the lake. As they're about to leave, the Shagohod comes out of the hangar with Volgin inside of it. Apparently some of the fuel had been taken out of the tanks before the explosion, so it was not enough to destroy the Shagohod. After being chased for some time by the Shagohod on Eva's bike, Ocelot finds and starts to pursue them on his own bike. After some time, an explosion causes debris to fall towards Ocelot. Snake shoots the debris with an RPG in order to both save Ocelot but also block him off. Snake and Eva reach a bridge, which Eva rigged with C3 for their escape. She decides to shoot the C3 when the Shagohod reaches it in order to drown it along with the bridge. And though they seemed successful at first, the Shagohod came rushing out of the water, missing its back piece, which contained the fuel for the rocket boosters and the warhead. At this point, Snake and Eva decide to fight him head on instead of running away. Halfway through the fight, Volgin gets out of the Shagohod, stands on it, and controls it by manipulating the electricity from its wires using his own electricity. However, this would be his downfall, as it would start raining and lightning hit him, causing him to be set ablaze. And if that wasn't enough, Volgin was wearing a belt around his torso which had a bunch of large bullets around it. The fire caused those bullets to go off one by one. Pursued by the Groznyj soldiers, Snake and Eva have no time to be happy. They continue driving to the river. After some time, they lose control of the bike and run over a log, causing them to fly off the bike and fall to the ground. Eva lands on a branch of a log, which pierces her just above her hip. Snake helps her up and leads her towards the lake. Once they reach the lake, Eva runs excitedly towards the plane. What happened to the injury? She was slowly walking this whole time. Okay. Anyways, Snake turns around and looks forward with a determined face away from the plane. Eva, knowing that this is his way of saying that he's going to wait for the boss, tells him to promise her that he will come back alive. Snake doesn't answer. After a short walk, Snake arrives at a field of white flowers, where he hears and feels the shock of a huge explosion. After the blast dissipates, he sees the boss before him, holding a Davy Crockett missile launcher without the warhead.